Thanks for joining me. We're here to talk about Chrome for testing tonight. Okay. Um, it's been around a few months now. So, obviously, from Google specifically for testers and developers more so than consumers, but we'll get into that. We're also going to talk a little bit about how we can use this in conjunction with Selenium Manager. This is a new driver manager component to Selenium that really came about in version 4 and upwards, 4.11 within Selenium itself. Okay, so specifically for Chrome driver, we're just going to talk 15-20 minutes. We'll talk about what it is, where it's come from, why it's come about, how people are using it in the industry now for testing, particularly with automation as well. What's good about it? Why do we need it? How does it improve our current process? All right, really, what's it bringing to the table in practical terms? Pros and cons. Way more pros than really there are any cons. Bit of a spoiler there. There's only one conceivable thing which we can talk about, which is in effect that Chrome for testing isn't the browser that your consumers or your customers will be using. But we'll talk about how that very, very small risk is mitigated anyway by the nature of what Chrome for testing is designed for. And then, yes, as I say, we'll talk about how this works in conjunction with Selenium Manager. Really to make that whole process of browser management, driver management for your consistent, reliable, predictable testing that much easier to manage. Okay. So what is it? Well, clearly, we need to be on top of our cross-browser testing. Okay, so your web applications, so to ensure you're delivering the highest quality applications to your customers, you've got to do a lot of non-functional testing or cross-browser testing. Okay, so maybe you're just looking at latest versions of Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari as well. But nonetheless, you've got to do that cross-browser testing. Okay, with any kind of testing, there are really 2 or 3 things that are absolutely key. So the first is, you've got to be in control and on top of your test environments effectively. And as far as this conversation goes, I'm considering the browser and the version of the browser as part of that environment. All right, so you've got to have control over that. You've got to have control of the inputs, and you've got to have a definitive way of verifying your outcomes. That's really what solid testing is about. So in this conversation, we're going to consider the browser and the associated driver for that browser to be part of that controlled environment when you're testing your web application. Okay. One of the problems we've got, and I'll give you an example right now, is that if you're using a stock instance of Chrome on your machine, and you've not gone out of your way to change the default settings, you're going to see that it's going to upgrade from underneath you. All right, so this started on my browser just a couple of days ago. I've let it stay in this static position, but you can see that it's very kindly, very helpfully trying to upgrade me from version 1.17 to presumably 1.18. It's doing that because I've not disabled or I've not turned off my automatic updates. And as soon as I relaunch this browser, it's going to complete that upgrade process and I will be on 1.18. Okay, so you're going to get these auto upgrades with all modern browsers. That'll be the same with Edge, with Firefox, with Safari, and Chrome, of course. Okay, the reason they're doing that, of course, they want you to have the latest browser features. They want you to have the latest performance and security updates. Simple as that. They don't really want you languishing on an older version of their browser. So they've got this automatic upgrade process there for you. All right. Now, one of the other challenges, if you have a customer with a specific bug and they raise a bug and they say, "Yep, I'm on version 113 dot whatever," Google have now made it very, very hard for you to actually go back in time and get that older production version, that specific Chrome browser version that you may want to get your hands on in order to investigate a potential bug or to try and recreate a potential bug. And for the reasons we just spoke about, Google don't want you to find and locate these older versions of Chrome. They want you to be on the latest. So in terms of development and testing, finding those older versions, should as and when you need them, is tedious, it's time consuming, and it's not easy to take current off your system and to switch it for an older version. That process is made really quite troublesome. All right. Should, however, you manage to do that, you've still got to think about your Chrome driver as well. So with an older version of Chrome, you're going to need an older version of Chrome driver to actually drive it, as far as an automated test is concerned. Okay, not for the manual side of things, of course, but as far as an automated test is concerned. So you've got your browser, you've got your browser driver, and going back in time, you're going to have to find and locate both the older versions of those. All right, it's not meant to be easy to do that. As a result, some people, have looked at a workaround of using Chromium itself. It's not really a workaround in the sense that Chromium and Chrome are not the same. Chromium is also not the browser that your customers use your web application on. Okay, really the reason that people have resorted to using Chromium in this instance is that it is easier to go back and get historical versions of Chromium. Right, that version control and access to these older versions is made that bit easier. But it's a bit of a false economy, really, because it's not the browser that your users are using to use your web application. One of the key problems as well is that despite the version control and the ability to get those older versions of Chromium, it is in no way, shape or form tied to the actual Chrome production instance publication. There's no kind of synchronization there. So it helps you on one hand, but again, it's not a true reflection. All right, so it may come with its own risks. So what is the solution? What is Chrome for Testing all about? Well, it's exactly that. It is a version of Chrome that is designed purely for developers and testers, for testing purposes. Okay, it's not for consumers to use. Okay, so you could still make that argument, and this is potentially the only small con. Again, it's not the exact browser that your users will be using. However, it is as close to production as you are going to find. Okay. As we just talked about with Chromium, so the versioning and the publication of Chrome for testing is absolutely coupled with the production or the consumer Chrome production pipeline. Okay, so about now we're looking at 118, 119. So 119 Chrome for Testing is going to be released at the same time as 119 consumer production browser. Okay, so you do have that parity, which is absolutely key. Okay, so you can rely upon that. So it is now very easy to quickly locate and work with any particular version of Chrome. Okay, so really it starts from 115 and up, given that we're pushing quickly towards 119, 120 now within Chrome. I think most people are tending to look forward and maybe a couple of major versions backwards, but really for the most part you're unlikely to need to go back past 115 at this stage, as I say, unless you've got a particular bug that someone's raised and they're on an old system themselves. So you can easily go back and find particular versions now, so we'll talk about that. But one of the key things now is that your driver management for particular versions of Chrome is now bundled together with the actual browser management itself. So this was a separate process before. I go away, I get version 116 of the browser, I need to go and get an equivalent or a matching Chrome driver version, again for my automated testing, in order to actually drive that browser. Well, Chrome for Testing is now bundling those together as well. So if there's a new version of Chrome, it's going to come with a new version of Chrome driver. So no longer a separate process that you need to manage. And the key thing, coming back to what we saw here within my browser, this auto updating, okay, well that's just not going to happen with Chrome for Testing. So if you lock in on version 118, for as long as you have that on your system and that's the browser that you want to test with, it's not going to auto update under your feet. All right, you're in complete control. This is going to work on all major OS. All right, so Mac, Windows, Linux, etc. So completely cross-platform, of course. and with all major and specific minor versions. As we said, so if you're looking for a particular version to investigate a bug, you're going to be able to do that now. And then really the next thing, so it now offers several channels, several release channels that are now available to us. Okay, so until now we've really talked about version specifics, but there are 4 release channels that that Google will talk about in terms of their Chrome browser development and release. All right, so we have the idea of the stable channel, the beta channel, the development channel, and the canary channel. All right, so these are all things or parameters that you can pass. So you say I want the stable, the latest stable. It's going to give you the latest stable version. Right, beta is going to drive a particular version. Dev and canary will go out and grab those latest dev and canary versions for you. So you can just request canary. You don't need to request a version, and it will give you the absolute latest, potentially something that's been released, that day. All right. So let's just explore really what that actually means. Okay, so it's all well and good having access to these options, but we need to be in control. We need to know what we're requesting, and the reasons that these channels are available to us. Okay, what's the difference between beta and dev? Why would I use one over the other? I probably don't want to be the absolute latest. Okay, that's equally not where I want to go with this. But so let's look at this. So if we think back in the past, we've got yesterday's versions effectively. All right, so I want to go to an older version, 110, 112 dot something, a specific major minor build patch version. And we can actually see that in the bottom right here on the slide, right? So understanding a little bit about versioning when it comes to the Chrome browser. All right, so 118 is our major version there. .0 is our minor version. .5993 is our build, and .70 is the patch. All right, so that's just a bit of an introduction to what this versioning actually corresponds with. So if we start to think of today and moving forward, we have the concept of stable, of course, right? So latest stable version of Chrome for testing. All right, so this is released every 2 to 3 weeks for minor updates. You're going to get major updates around every 4 weeks. The recommendation that Google make is that in a business, for example, where IT are rolling out versions of browsers or giving access, 95% of your users, your customers, if you like, would typically be on a latest stable release. Okay. So yeah, major releases every 4 weeks, of course. And if we then start to look into the future, right? So if you want to start testing your web application on future versions of Chrome, you've got 3 options. You've got beta, dev, and canary. All right. So beta is looking at things that will become stable features within 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. So the beta release channel sees a release about once a week. And again, same as stable, major updates every 4 weeks. And the recommendation there from Google is that around 5% of your user base could be on the beta platform, okay, to help with that kind of future view, and then using it potentially to test your web application, or becoming aware of the features that will be coming to you in a stable version of the next Chrome browser. If you want to go a step further than that, if you're looking 9 to 12 weeks out, so features that are going to become available in a stable version in 3 to 4 months, effectively, that's what the development release channel is there for. Okay, so you can specify a dev version of Chrome for testing. And because we're starting to move into the dev space now, you're going to see the release cadence is going to increase, right? So this is going to have a release twice a week. And the recommendation here from Google is that this is typically a release channel that you might put some IT staff on to assess those browser changes as they're coming in. And then the most forward-looking, but also not without risk, would be the canary version. So yeah, 9 to 12, still 9 to 12 weeks out, maybe 12 to 16 weeks out, 3 to 4 months potentially. But the canary version is released daily. Okay, so hot off the press, this is the latest of the latest Chrome features, released daily. We said tread carefully there. Things will come and go at will with canary releases, so in no way maybe it's there to be used for some kind of exploratory testing, but it's not going to be reliable, certainly not from an automation perspective. We come back to that idea of control, um, certainty in your testing environment, including your browser versioning and your browser features. Things are going to come and go from that Canary version, which really flies in the face of what you're trying to achieve in terms of consistency. So you're most likely looking at stable beta development release channels for your testing. And again, going back to historical versions, should you be trying to recreate a particular issue. Okay. So let's just look through some of the supporting documentation. Okay, so we touched on, if you want to understand which version of Chrome you're on, just go to obviously Chrome, about Google Chrome. You're going to see this page, and this again, as I say, this is where you come if you want to take control of your auto update settings, turn them on, turn them off. Maybe you turn them off and you sit with the current consumer production version of Chrome that you currently have. But other than that, as we've seen here, it's going to update from underneath you. Okay. This is a page, so you can go to developer.chrome.com, okay, search for Chrome for testing, and it's going to give you the kind of 50,000 foot view of what Chrome for testing is all about, the things that we've kind of discussed already. So this was last updated in June of 23. So you're going to get the whole background there, but it's really the things that I've taken you through there about having control of your binaries, not having it update from underneath you. And then this page here, you can look at support.google.com, and you're going to start to understand about these release channels that I was talking about. All right, so you can see there, look, keep most users on the stable channel. It's been fully tested by Chrome, updated every 2 to 3 weeks for minor, 4 weeks for major, as we said. There we go. And then the beta channel, 5% of your users on beta channel. Interesting. Some features might require you to communicate additional information to your organization. So this is about rolling it out, within a company, but obviously we're talking about it from a testing perspective. Okay. Users on the beta channel can discover possible issues with a release, giving you time to address the issues before the release is rolled out to everyone else. Okay. And then keep IT staff on the beta or the dev channel. Use Canary for testing only. There you go. Canary is a future version of Chrome that's still in development. Features will appear and disappear, making it unstable for everyday use. So maybe if you're curious or you want to explore, then by all means, but it's not going to be consistent for you. All right. So that's just a little bit about the background. That's Google's perspective themselves on what these things are for and how you should use them. So just touching on the Chrome driver side of things. So as we said, prior to the advent of Chrome for testing, so really before version 1.15, as we can see here, you had to manage your browser and you had to manage your instance of Chrome driver as well. But as we've said, with Chrome for testing, these things are now coupled together. Now this page recommends that from 1.15 and above, 1.16, 1.17, obviously till where we are now, 1.18, 1.19. Anything going forward, of course, it says please consult the Chrome for testing availability. So if I step across to that, this is the Chrome for testing dashboard. So right at the top of the page, it's going to tell me what my latest stable is. So we're looking at 118.0. So again, reminder, that's the major and the minor build versions. Okay, 5993 is the build. .70 is a patch on that build. Beta, we can see, is creeping slightly forward, so that's now on major 119. Dev is further forward from that. That's on major version 120. And then when you start to come into the Canary side of things, we're still on the same major version, so 120. We're still on the same minor version, .0. But the build itself, so it's gone from 6051 to 6061, so potentially 10 builds forward on the Canary side of things compared to Dev, and then .0 on the patch. So that's where you start to see smaller, more minor but incremental changes, within which come a degree of instability. And then it will tell you where Canary is going. So yeah, understandably, it's going to go from 6061 to 6062. but the red cross telling us that that's not yet available. As you scroll down, you see kind of more OS specific versions. Now you've got two things here. You've got URLs to go to download zip files effectively. So you've got the browser downloads themselves. So at the top of the pile. So for version 118 stable, I've got a Linux 64 Chrome download. I've got a couple of Mac variations, a couple of Windows variations there. Then under that, as you can see, bundled together, I've got the Chrome driver zips there as well. Okay, you'll get the same thing for beta, and you'll get the same thing for dev. All right, so that's just to give you a bit of a flavour of how Google's making this stuff available to you now. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a background as to what it is we're talking about here. So what I'm going to do now is actually just show you this stuff in practice. Okay, so and we will look at it with Selenium Manager as well. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to start running some tests. So I'll go get that ready. Got some tests then. So I've got an incredibly simple feature. We're going to go to Amazon. We're going to search for a product. Okay, simple as that. So what we'll do as we run this test, we'll just debug it. And we're just going to take a peek at the browser version based upon what we specified. So you will see here some example kind of browser versions that we've been talking about for the duration of this session so far. So within TestEvolve Spark, it's just a simple config change. All right, so we've done all of the hard work for you. So we've coupled together Selenium Manager with the ability to drive through these Chrome for testing versions, passing them through to Selenium in order to get the perfect setup of exactly what you need, what you're asking for, without anything else you need to do, right? There's no downloading of browsers, there's no sourcing of drivers, that's now all taken care for you with this one single, very simple version parameter. So it's within the Chrome settings within the TestEvolve Spark configuration. So if you want to read more about how TestEvolve works or look at the configuration, see the features, the functions that are available to you, you can go to testevolved.github.io. I'll share some links at the end of the session, and that will explain how our framework hangs together, how it all works. Okay, but for now, let's run a test. What we'll do as well, we'll just look at the locations on my system where the browser is downloaded and installed, and also where the associated Chrome driver is downloaded and installed. Now, before I do that, I will just mention I talked about Selenium Manager. Now, in earlier automation frameworks, including within TestEvolve Spark, before Selenium Manager would manage the drivers on your behalf. And now at this stage, I'm not just talking about Chrome, I'm also talking about Firefox, for which we need Gecko driver, Edge, for which we need Edge driver, of course, and there's also Safari driver. But prior to Selenium 4, or specifically Selenium 4.11, which first brought in support for the automatic sourcing of Chrome driver, you either had to use an open source library that's out there for kind of use within your framework, or you had to write your own custom code to go and grab that Chrome driver or that Gecko driver or that Edge driver and pull it into your project, or you had to manually download it and place it within a directory within your automation project, and then as something that you checked into your source control. Now, some of those libraries are deprecated. Selenium have now incorporated this within Selenium WebDriver. It's a component called Selenium Manager. So right now, I think now actually they've just released support for Firefox with support for Edge left to come. So right now, automation frameworks will still need to source their own Edge driver, but Selenium Manager will currently take care of Chrome driver and Gecko driver for Chrome and Firefox. I believe 4.12.0 has very recently been released. All right, so as far as a holistic solution, yes, we're now talking about the sourcing of drivers for these three browsers. Okay, so let's just come back to our test. So yeah, right now I'm just going to work with Chrome. Okay, so we're here to talk about Chrome for testing. So the first thing I'm going to do is specify an older version of Chrome, not that old. Just a major version ago. All right, so 117 is the major, 05938 is the build, 149 is the patch. So I will debug my test, and we will stop when the browser is open. Okay, got some firewall changes to make here, so apologies, you can see that pop up a few times. What we'll do after this, we'll just look at the logs in the bottom right as well, because we can see exactly what Selenium Manager is doing, where it's going, what it's downloading, what it's finding on your system, what it's not finding on your system, its determination of what it needs to get you effectively. Okay, so there we go, seems to be progressing nicely. There we go, I've got a browser that's popped open. Let's just clear this out of the way. All right, I'm just debugged to a certain point in my test, so I'll just come back to my browser. And here we can see, top left, you're probably used to seeing this Chrome is being controlled by automated test software message by now. But actually what we now have is another banner that says Chrome for testing, version 117, ending .149, is only for automated testing, as we said, not for consumer browsing or regular browsing. But there you go, confirmation that the version of, an older version of Chrome that I just requested has been sourced on my behalf with a corresponding Chrome driver to go along with it. I've not had to do anything at all other than just put that in the config, run my test, and it's gone and done that for me. Alright, so let's just come back to the code and just let that see through to completion. And then we'll just look at some, let's just make sure what we'll do. Okay, so the test hasn't passed, but I'm not really concerned about that. What I am interested in is what's now happening on my system. So as we can see here, within a cache directory on my system, there is a Selenium folder. Within Selenium, I've now got a Chrome directory and a Chrome driver directory. They've been updated just 2 minutes ago. So Chrome, there we go, Mac64, there you go. Chrome 117 ending .149 has been downloaded. There's the Chrome for testing binary. And I should, there you go, have a corresponding Chrome driver to go with it. All right, so simple as that really. So let's just get rid of both of those. Let's try something different. Let's start looking ahead in the future. All right, so in fact, before we do that, let's just do default, because I think it's going to work with the default consumer version of Chrome, should we say, that I've got on my system. So not a Chrome for testing version, but let's just have a look. So I set off default. I believe what it's going to do is look at the path of my actual Chrome install and make its judgment based upon that. So let's see. There we go. So I'm still debugging to the same point in the test. As I'm sure you can see, the difference here being that it's not using Chrome for testing, right? So it's considered, when I've put the param of default, it said, okay, in that case, you just want to use the proper consumer production version of Chrome, if you like, that we've already found on your system. I can just double check that by looking at the settings, and we can see it's the one that I saw earlier, version 118. And even now, it's still checking for updates. Okay, so that's the default value. Let's stop that test. Right, let's start. And actually, before we do that, we'll just look in here. There you go. There's a 118 driver. Now, what it's not done there, interestingly, well, as we'd expect, to be honest, there is no Chrome for testing that's been installed. It's just gone out and got me the driver, okay, because I emptied my drivers folder. So all it needed was the driver, because I already had the browser on my system. Okay, so same thing. Let's get rid of that guy. All right, coming back to my test. Let's start future planning now. Right, so we'll jump forward to beta. So I think we should at least be rolling forward to 119 at this point. So there we go. We'll debug. We can start to look at some of this stuff in the console. Gives us, as I say, an idea of what's actually happening in the background there. We'll look at that in a bit more detail in a second. Right, here we go. So this is the beta version of Chrome for testing. So as we can see here, 119.0.6045.9. So just by putting in beta, that's gone out and got me the beta version of the browser, the beta version, or sorry, the associated or the matching version of that Chrome driver as well. So let's just stop that. Let's just check our directory. So there's Chrome. There we go. There's 119 Chrome for testing. So it's just gone and got that for me. And there's my 119 Chrome driver. And then just as a final test, we'll come back and we will go. Let's jump right forward. Okay, let's look at Canary. All right. Let's debug that, and off we go again. So I suppose when you're running this test for the first time, it will take a few seconds longer because it's doing all of this stuff for you. What I'll do after this one, actually, let's just check this. So there you go. This was Canary, right? So 120.0.6061.0. This is what we mentioned earlier. So you still got that Chrome for testing banner. And once more, just as a final evidence, there we can see I didn't clear out that folder previously. So I've now got two versions of Chrome. We've got 119, which was the beta. 120, which is the Canary, and I've got two Chrome drivers as well. Alright, so I think we can kind of see how this works now. Let's just out of interest, let's stop that. And we'll just let it fly one more time. Now I'm not going to make any changes now, so it should, when undertaking its checks, it should see that I've already got Canary now. So, because I've not deleted them from the cache, so there you go. A lot quicker that second time. Of course, it finds it immediately, almost in the same way as finding my default version of the browser. Okay, but just finally, what I'll do, and yeah, then we can see there's nothing further being installed there. Okay, let's get rid of those. What haven't we done? We haven't done dev yet, so we'll do dev, and then we'll look at the logs as well, just to show us what's actually going on. So. Let's debug that. And while that's running, let's see what it's actually doing. Okay. So first of all, we've got confirmation that the Selenium Manager binary is present. Let's just confirm. Yeah, this is our dev version of Chrome for testing. So I think we can definitely see that that's all working as expected. I shall let that test continue. Searching for Christmas trees. Yep, we're getting that close. All right, that test has passed, but what we care about now is just seeing in the logs in a bit more detail about what's going on here. Right. So let's have a look. Right. So it's found the Selenium Manager binary on my system as part of Selenium WebDriver 4.11.0. As we said, .12 is going to give you support for Gecko driver for Firefox. .13 is going to give support for Edge driver for Edge. All right, it's doing a few things. So checking Chrome driver in my path. It's looking for the version. It's not returning anything, so it determines that that particular Chrome driver is not found in my path. It's then doing a similar thing for Chrome. It makes the determination that that specific version of Chrome is not on my system and tells me that. It confirms the version of Chrome that I'm asking for, so based upon my parameter of, I think it was dev that time, it's looking for the .6051.2 version, which was one before the canary. Okay, it's looking at its kind of JSON object resource there to retrieve what it needs to determine what it needs to download. Okay, it's telling me there exactly where and what it's downloading, right? Obviously knows I'm on a Mac. It's got the version, there's the URL, you could go and follow that and you'd be able to get that manually in the same way. There we go, it's been downloaded. Here's the required driver, same thing, going to source that. There's the URL to get the driver. And then what it tells me is that these things have been stored in this cache. So it establishes these as the new driver and browser paths for my test then to go ahead and execute. So that's really what it's doing. And then just confirmation here, Chrome driver was started successfully. And then of course it opened that browser for me. We saw that, we got confirmation of the version, ran my test, passed. And we're done. So that's really how it works. So just confirmation at this level that to take advantage of this for Chrome specifically, this is all you've got to do. So you've got to know what it is you want to test against, and that's as simple. There's no management for you to do now. You just pass through a configuration parameter and everything is going to happen for you in the background. Okay. So yeah, there you go. 4.11 for Chrome driver, .12 for Gecko driver, .13 for Edge driver. As I say, I think we're on .12 right now. So within Test Evolve, currently we still manage Edge driver on your behalf. It's just not being done through Selenium Manager as yet, to my knowledge. Wonderful. I think that really concludes. Really, there's everything that there's to talk about there. So. Yeah, thanks for your time. You know, this was about Chrome for testing, Selenium Manager, how they work together, how we've simplified that process for you. All right, if you're on a kind of completely open source in-house framework, you would still have to introduce some code to manage parts of that for you. But really, as far as Test Evolve Spark is concerned, we've done all that heavy lifting for you. Okay, so if you like what you've seen, please give us a thumbs up, maybe subscribe to the channel. Hopefully this has been useful to you. You'll find us on all social media channels. Just search for Test Evolve. If you'd like to understand more about our product, please go to testevolve.com or check out our documentation on GitHub. So yeah, Test Evolve, really your one-stop automation solution. So whether it's desktop, mobile browser, mobile apps, native, Android, iOS, you've got API automation to look at. We have a number of integrations to other industry-leading vendors, BrowserStack, Cobaton, Source Labs, Percy, Applitools for your visual checking, Perfecto for your mobile. We also offer Lighthouse auditing within your test automation and accessibility checks against all major international standards as well. So we do offer a free, completely non-committal, fully featured 90-day evaluation. So why not give us a try? And we're only an email or a Slack message away in terms of support. So yeah, as I say, if you like this content, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And we'll see you very soon. Thanks very much.